Welcome to November on Recover and Grow, and if you're just joining us, you're very, very welcome. And here we are on the edge of winter, just coming to the end of autumn. I always think of November as the last month of autumn, and that's sad in some ways, but in a way it's also lovely. We're cozying down, we've brought in the harvest, we've done another growing I was going to say growing year, but actually we're still growing. But it is the end of that big, productive, busy time of getting the harvest in. And the clocks have gone back and it's getting cold and chilly and it's dark. It's one of the darker months, dark in the evenings, dark in the mornings. We've lost that precious time to spend out in the garden, some of us, in the early mornings. So it's time to hunker down and find new ways of enjoying the whole of our gardens whenever we can, whenever the weather lets us get out there, or time lets us get out there, is to get out there. There's still lots to do outside, and we'll be covering that this month. Lots of getting mulch down onto the soil and bringing things in still. And yeah, it depends entirely on your attitude, I find, as to whether I enjoy it or feel a bit sad that winter's coming. But there are two attitudes I wanted to say these quotes. There's two people quoting here, and I love both of them for different reasons. Let me just read you these things about November. Most people early in November take last looks at their gardens and are then prepared to ignore them again until spring. I'm quite sure that a garden doesn't like to be ignored like this. It doesn't like to be covered in dust sheets as though it were an old room which you'd shut up during the winter. Especially since the garden knows how gay and delightful it can be, even in the very frozen heart of winter, if you only give it a chance. That was a gardener called Beverly Nichols. And then this is Vita Sackville-West talking about November. If it's true that one of the greatest pleasures of gardening lies in looking forward, then the planning of next year's beds and borders must be one of the most agreeable occupations in the gardener's calendar. This should make October and November particularly pleasant months, for then we may begin to clear our borders, cut down those sodden and untidy stalks, dig up and increase our plants and move them to other positions where they will show up to greater effect. People who are not gardeners always say that the bare beds of winter are uninteresting, but gardeners know better and take even a certain pleasure in the neatness of a newly dug, bare, brown earth. I like both those quotes, and I try to sort of strike a balance. I do enjoy mulching the beds, getting them tidy, thinking about next year, reflecting on what was good, what could be better, should I move some plants, all of those things. Planning and thinking is a great part of winter for a gardener. But I also like the idea of not covering my garden in dust sheets and putting it to bed, as the saying goes, and ignoring it until the spring. So I try to leave some of my garden untidy, where I can enjoy the seed heads and the the wildlife can enjoy it. I always try to leave some logs and piles of stuff around for bumblebees and all the pollinators to find places to hibernate and just to enjoy this season of the garden, rather than thinking, okay, that's it, it's done, I'm going to rest up and I'm not going to think about it until the spring. Because there's lots that can be done and enjoyed in the winter months, and November is really the kind of beginning of that, really. And I've written in here some of the things that I've said about my garden in November, and I just want to read you this and just give you an impression of how I love this time of year. As the memories of long summer evenings and early dawns fades away, my heart's tuned to finding comfort in the wood burner, candles, hot drinks and soft blankets, fairy lights on our terrace and watching the birds gather to the bird feeders. November is the month when the plot is finally rested after its harvest. The beds are all mulched and the autumn seedlings that are hardy are planted out. Rabbit proofing is inspected and renewed before the rabbit's winter hunger sets in, and my new shoots of onions, garlics and brassicas are ravaged. Sprouting broccoli and Brussels sprout plants are now nearly 4 feet tall, and so staking them against the winter gales is essential too. All the summer bamboo teepees and nets are brought in, the greenhouse is shut up at night, and the hoses are drained so that they don't freeze and crack. It's all preparation for both the garden and me to rest. I wander around the plot and try to remember what was a success and what seemed a failure, which crops we've loved eating and which I won't repeat next year, which varieties thrived and which ones never got going. It's immensely satisfying to know that all that could be eaten, frozen or preserved has been brought in. The fruit bushes and trees are losing their leaves, but there are bags of raspberries and apricots and plums and currants in the freezer. There are jars of crabapple and quince jelly on the pantry shelves and wooden boxes of apples in the store. The last harvest of the year, the magnificent quinces, happens in November, and we will be ready to make them into membrillo and jars of chili jelly for Christmas. The great work of preserving the harvest is done and nothing's been wasted. It's a relief, an accomplishment, and as I finish feeding the soil, I'm just so thankful to it for its bountiful provision. Another harvest of good food is in. And that is great consolation in a wet, grey, dark November evening. And it's the wonderful compensation that comes as a gardener, because you have that lovely feeling that I think that we need to recover in our lives, of living in the seasons and appreciating everything that each season brings. And November brings a sense of fatness and satisfaction that a job has been done and we are stuffed for the winter as the Christmas preparations begin. So this month is going to feel a little bit different. The growing schedules are much shorter, much leaner. There's not a lot of sowing of seed or planting that goes on this month. There's a little bit. We'll be planting out the broad beans, and if we haven't planted garlic already, we'll be doing that. But I'm going to show you this month a little bit. I want to concentrate on trying to be self-sufficient in fruit and vegetables and what that means. So this month the teaching is going to be about using your freezer, getting in the harvests and making sure that there's enough to take you through the year and the leaner months to come in the hungry gap in the beginning of spring. The freezer is going to be vital, so I've done quite a lot of work on that. We're going to talk about the value of root vegetables and how much they can help you to be self-sufficient in veg in the winter, because they are a balance to all the greens that are coming in, pouring in still from the garden. All the kales and cabbages and broccolis and calabrese and all of those are coming in. So together with them, as a sort of balance to your meals, are all the swede and the parsnips and the carrots and the beetroot. So we're going to talk about them. I'm hoping to be able to show you how I make my own yogurt this month, and how I haven't bought yogurt for a long time. I eat it every day, and I've got a wonderful way of making yogurt, possibly some fresh cheeses, maybe your own butter. That will be covered hopefully this month or next month. But the main feeling is to get across to you that it is perfectly possible to go on living out of your garden, even though you've put some of it to bed. Some of it is covered in mulch and it's waiting till the spring. A lot of it isn't. A lot of it's still coming in. It's not under dust sheets. It's still being very productive, but in a gentle way. We've gone past that huge bringing in of the harvest, which is a big work, and I'm always exhausted at the end of it. And we're now moving into snuggling down, putting up fairy lights, getting out the candles, lighting the fire, pulling up the throws and the cushions, and enjoying the comfort of winter. So this week there'll be a video that you can watch, and also there are 2 downloads, the growing schedules, a vegetable growing schedule and a flower growing schedule, which you can download. They're obviously going to be shorter than they normally are this month because there's not a lot of sowing going on in November, but they're still there and they've got jobs to do for this month in them, and you can download those. And then as we go through the month, every week there'll be the teaching video, and then on week 3 you'll be able to download the recipes for this month, which will cover all the root veg that we're going to do and some preserving, chutneys and pickles and things like that. All those recipes will be on that recipe download. And then there's also in the spotlight, which we're concentrating this month on the root vegetables, and all of the ones like beetroot, parsnips, carrots, swede, turnips, all of those sort of things that taking you through growing them and how to harvest them and all of that. So they are a great and wonderfully important vegetable if you want to be self-sufficient in vegetables. So that's what we're covering this month. And then every week you've got your tips, Penny's tips, 3 or 4 of them a week. Don't forget to watch those because they're part of the teaching. They're the sort of practical little clips that I've taken to just show you various tips that I find really helpful, and I hope that you will too.